And welcome to this 19th day of February 2020. This is our Mentoring Stewards Coherence call. And welcome everyone that might be listening to this later. We'll begin with Nahid, bringing us into resonance and coherence together with an attunement.
Good to be here. Let's breathe together, deeply bringing life into your lungs, into each cell. Let go. Of anything not serving the greatest potential of who we are in this moment. As we attending the field among us, in between us, in us, I am inviting us to look deeply with the eyes of the heart. Being genuinely curious. Why are we together? In this moment, at this stage of our life. What is our dance together? Co-mentoring. And listen. And receive. The gift of life we are sharing. So be it.
Thank you, Nahid. My daughter's just finishing a 40-day yoga challenge. And she came home today and did that long sigh like you just did. And I'm like, oh yeah, remember that sigh. Thank you. And welcome, Grace. Wanted to pull through the threads from last week and continue to build on this energy. And the one thing that I want to just presence first is the idea of coherence. This is our coherence call. And the definitions of coherence, a lot of the times we're thinking of when things go together, there's a lot of different definitions, but in the UK English version of the Oxford Dictionary, it adds a one-liner that you don't find in a lot of the other dictionaries, which is the quality of forming a unified whole. And I love that phrase, the quality of forming a unified whole. It feels like our mission. It feels like the breath that breathes us. It feels like the heart that beats us. It's like this quality of forming a unified whole is here who we be. And I was talking with Shelley yesterday, and I was thinking about the idea of how do we do our being? How are we doing the being and being the doing, in that the being is so important, but the doing is so important. And it's like, it's that integration of that coherence now, of coming into coherence with one another and with the world around us. So just saying that, I shared a lot of information last week from Regenerative Leadership, the book, and wanted to really revisit and land the piece that I mentioned had moved me so much, because the pieces that I shared were really, again, like, for example, the core shamanism is like, of course, there's this unified field. And coming from the ancient spiritual traditions, we know there's this unified field. And the principles of core shamanism say, yes, all things are connected, and here we be, we're woven together. How can we not be in this quality of a unified whole? It's like we would live in coherence. And then the author of the book made that one statement that I read a couple times to you, and I'm just going to go back to it because I think it's interesting, and I changed it for everyone last week, in that the acknowledgement, he says, and he believes that the acknowledgement of what he calls the living systems field, of course everybody has their own name for it, the acknowledgement of the living systems field is a key to humanity's journey. And then he says, amid the age of regeneration, whereupon we begin to realize the innate interconnectedness of life once again. And to me, I shifted that, and that's what I shared for our call this morning. We'll do a brief check-in around this, and I shifted that language for the importance of me as we're talking about coherence and co-mentoring, and really being mentoring stewards for the good of the whole, is really living out loud the expression of this being as doing, and the expression of our doing as being, and bringing that qualitative, deep expression of the field as cohering through us. So the quote that I shared with you together is acknowledgement, therefore, looking at his acknowledgement of the unified field of consciousness is a key to humanity's return to wholeness and the conscious transition toward a whole world view. An embodied experience of the field brings us into right relationship with all life and accelerates our innate capacity to live for the good of the whole. So it's like the pieces and particles of all of these words carry a vibrational frequency that I want to drop in again in just a minute. But I first want to just let us muse on this idea that if the acknowledgement of the unified field is a key to healing humanity, is a key to coming back into whole systems health, is a key to creating more coherence on this planet, if acknowledging the unified field of consciousness is the key, then what goes beyond acknowledging? And what happens when we have the embodied experience of the unified field? Because that's what I think Good of the Whole offers. I think that's what we do when we gather. I think that's what we do on the Monday calls. I think that's what we mentor and model and create coherence out. It's not just that we're acknowledging the unified field up here, but that when we create the embodied experience of the field, it brings us into right relationship with all of life and really accelerates our capacity to live for the good of the whole. And that is our mission and our vision. And so I want to muse on that and bring that more deep, but I want to open us to a check-in of a sentence. A sentence. Remember, a sentence is a string of words with a period, not a paragraph with several sentences, but a sentence. You can have lots of conjunctions and ands and string on a long sentence if you want. But with our check-in today, let us share that experience of the unified field. And let's bring it in as concise. What is that experience, that embodied experience of the unified field for you in a sentence? And with that, I'm complete.
That I am in this moment, the unified whole with you, seeking the right relationship for the deeper expression of all that I am, that we are.
It's the direct experience of disintegrating my belief structures around me being a separate entity and having the direct experience of the expansion that is infinite, full of love, and includes all of the diversity being radiated by the one singular field.
I guess for me, feels like the creative force, the creative life force moving as a current of energy, expressed energy that I think I'll just leave it at that for right now. It's this creative force of energy that is expanding, overflowing, and I would just say joyfully overflowing. So when that embodiment happens, it's a moving force of love.
It is a feeling. And sometimes our words can connect us with that feeling or take us away from or away from a fuller connection. So I am drawn to the native peoples' expression of the field or actions in staying and cultivating connection with that. So to all my relations. And also walking the beauty way. So, and the definition of beauty when I was going to lead the Now I Walk in Beauty kind of a group circle, I looked to find the definition of what the beauty way was, and the native people's concept of beauty is all parts working together for the greater whole. You know, whether you're seeing a painting or a person or feeling, you know, experiencing that inside. And that in many ways, what you expressed, Julie, at the beginning, that the question or inquiry came to mind, in what ways are we, or areas in our lives, are we just learning to crawl? So I'll put a period at the end of that long sentence.
Since the three of you are off camera, I'm gonna just call you out. Grace, Oriana, Karen, welcome, Oriana. I know you were here during the question, so shouldn't have to repeat it, but the mic is yours.
Good morning, everyone. To put it in one sentence is impossible. What's coming to mind is a knowing, the feeling that knowing that I am always part of that sea of consciousness, always being directed by a higher source of all that is, ever has been, and ever will be. It's a state of being, and that feeling that Henry spoke of and others. And that I'm an individualized expression of that divine, but I'm also part of the whole collective, that relationship with all. And being directed every moment of every day. Period.
For me, it's a deep felt sense in my heart, my energetic personal heart, of the awareness of this consciously evolving field, collective field of love as the force energizing it. Period.
Mhm.
And this is Oriana. And for me, the field is true self, of which there is only one, having a perspective that is unique in the world that I call my unique self. But the field is that which we are. Period.
That was poetry. That was beautiful. And I'm glad I asked in that way, because we have science that a lot of this language of the unified field comes from more of the scientific space of understanding. And then we have the ancient spiritual traditions, the indigenous wisdom, the web of life, the God Spirit, Holy Spirit. There's all kinds of language on the spiritual side of this unified field. And as we move toward the acknowledgement of this unified field, we have the opportunity to have that languaging be a bridge, creating the bridge. And I think that this poem that was just written really does create a bridge between the head and the heart, between the left brain and the right brain, between the masculine and the feminine, and the understanding and looking at this. So let's just take this one step further and let's just keep musing into this, because I want to take this toward Earth Day and help that inform our collective choices as well as our individual choices for gatherings and offerings and moving toward Earth Day. But where I wanted to go a second ago in that musing into deeper is moving this embodied experience of the field toward our collective worldview of being mentoring stewards is about mentoring a whole worldview, is mentoring this experience, this embodied, ineffable experience. And if we go to put language on it, sometimes we get to our left brain or we get to our mind and we're not in our heart. And here we are as mentors, really truly mentoring a whole worldview that is medicine, that is solutions. It's like when Einstein had said, no problem can be solved with the same consciousness that created it. The sentence after that was, we must learn to see the world anew. And as mentoring stewards of good of the whole, we're helping others to expand that field and seeing the world anew through this lens of the unified field. So as I say that, the responses were really this personal piece of expression, right? It's like how my embodied experience of this, there was a lot of inward, there's the heart, there's the, it's really beautiful poetry. I wrote down several words, and I know Shelley's busy taking notes too. One singular field, creative life force, current of expressed energy, moving force of love, all my relations. I love when we're talking back, pulling those threads of the indigenous, walking the beauty way, always part of the sea of consciousness, a state of being, part of the unified whole. It's like, I can keep going because I kept going. I don't want to leave anybody out. There were so many beautiful threads to pull through, and therefore, I'm going to make the assumption that you all live in this worldview, that you all have a whole worldview, and you look toward the world with this lens of wholeness through the unified field as you're talking about being guided and what have you. So my question is if there's this bridge for humanity to cross, and this bridge of humanity is letting go of that illusion of separation and walking across the bridge together into this whole worldview, into this new way of being, into this embodied experience. What might that bridge need to be made of? And what might the guides who bring people across that bridge need as we're inviting, let me just go to our mission, is to cultivate an ethos of wholeness. It's the culture of wholeness. As we're cultivating a culture or an ethos of wholeness and nurturing our innate capacity to live for the good of the whole. Part of that is helping us come into right relationship with all things and really accelerate that understanding of the whole worldview. So what is that bridge? And I say that in the way that as we bring Earth Day forward, we could do, we have 2020 is a big year. And there's a plethora of activities planned. There's a plethora of organizations doing amazing things. So Earth Day there'll be a plethora of activities for Earth Day. And as our little brainstorming went last week, we're gonna see those that clean up the beach, and those that start community compost piles, and those that teach water awareness and work toward pure water, not just clean water. We're going to see a plethora of events. And as we move toward the International Day of Peace in September and Unity's Caravan, there's a lot of peace initiatives. There's a lot of organizations who are bringing forward amazing events. There's going to be this huge redwood whale that's going to travel across the US with the Peace Caravan for Unity. So what makes good of the whole unique, and the opportunity that we share, is this lived experience of the whole worldview, this embodied experience of the field. And to me, and again, we all have our own lenses that we look out from, but for me and my lens, that can heal anything. When we help people come into this embodied experience of the field, and when we help people have a lived experience of the whole worldview. So let's deepen into this bridge that we're inviting people to walk across this bridge with that lived experience, with that embodied experience. And I don't have a specific question. Let's just envision this bridge. And we, as a coherent, loving, creative force in the world, being mentors and stewards and guides, helping people across that bridge. I'm not going to even use the senses. And so what does it look like? What does it feel like? Imagine that with me, and let's just hold that vision today of this opportunity that's before us. With that, I'm complete.
I've been in that inquiry over 20 years, desiring to be that bridge, to bring the scientific understanding and the ancient mystical wisdom together. These two aspects, they met in me. In my heart. I learned that my heart is the bridge. And there are lots of talks about this fascination with the language, with the words. It's like it keeps entertaining us, and nothing is wrong with that. But sometimes, as Henry mentioned in the beginning, it could bring us closer to the feeling sense of it and deeper knowing, but it could be very distracting. So the bridge being the heart within each human ability to access the whole field, this unified wholeness in oneself. And then you ask, what do we need? We only need to deeply drop there and let everything else that everybody has said be. And I access that uniqueness that I am in relationship with you. So this is really my question, that what are we doing together? I'm still pondering in this co-mentoring when I said desiring the right relationship, because it's very clear when you drop deep in the heart, the generative leadership is there, the language is there, everything is there. How can I support you? Because nobody else is here but us now. How can I support you to drop there, which I have not experienced you there yet, and from there, from meeting there.
So one thing that came to mind for me, to heart, is something that I've mentioned before of learning to or cultivating practices, simple exercise, simple meditations, of ways of connecting with wholeness practices, resonance practices. But what came to mind today, in addition to that, is field practices, the things that bring us to that place, and just some very simple little meditations, and where each of us coming from different perspectives, from such as Nahid, from a mystical perspective. And maybe I'll also extend that to John, perhaps in coming in the helping profession of counseling. So what are field practices that bring us into resonance with the other? Or even ideas, from different traditions, like the other is thyself. So what I'm suggesting or putting forward is different. It is each of us, or those who are drawn to, coming up with, or maybe just starting with a practice that brings us to the field. Maybe going out in nature, or putting your back against a tree, and just simple ways, 1,001 ways to kneel and to kiss the ground or kiss the earth. That if we come up with these practical ways to enhance that, and just I went to just an evening workshop with one of the Damanhur teachers, and it was on love. And she had some very insightful pieces. So what came to mind with this, what we're considering today, is she said that love is both a feeling and an act and an action. So it needs both those components. If it's just a feeling and not externalized, sometimes we do actions without feelings, or we do them out of guilt, out of duty, or something like that. Or we just have the feeling, but we don't do some specific action, or taking something a little forward. So that's what I offer to the field.
So I can pick up on that. Thanks to both of you. Start out this morning, and Julie, you talked about the baby getting ready to crawl, and then Henry, you picked up on the crawling in it. And as I converse with people and meet new people, it brings back to me that we're about ready to crawl. We're not running with this. We're not marathoners yet. And as a matter of fact, in the larger picture, we may be just excited about the possibility of crawling on this journey. And then when we look at the populations that we're hoping to mentor, become stewards of that, then what is the smallest common denominator that I can think of, that if on Earth Day, the opportunity was there for every individual of every diverse population to do one thing that would add for the good of the whole? Because I don't think a lot of people, unfortunately, give a damn about Earth Day. They're really involved in their basic survival, and they're not crawling yet. They're just kind of looking around. Now, the one thing that I can honestly say for myself is that if I share my heart space with one other person, and that energy is, that connection happens, I really do feel like I've done something for the good of the whole. So at a very pre-crawl message out to, kind of like with this political thing now, everybody's going out knocking on doors and trying to get people to support their candidate. What one small thing could my brothers and sisters back in the middle of Missouri commit to do one small action and name that, to join someone else in the resonant field? Even if they don't understand the resonant field, they do understand that there's a longing for love inside. What could you do, one loving thing on this day that would contribute to the unification of the whole? I remember back for a number of years, I was studying and experiencing out-of-body consciousness, astral projection. And there was a basic core scientific as well as mystical process. And that was, there's this golden umbilical cord that connects us to the infinite. And that light of that umbilical cord is extremely bright. And then it begins to fade out from that. And so it's kind of like that warmth that I feel inside of being in that direct connection. People do that with their families, they do that in their workplaces, they do that everywhere, but not necessarily consciously. And I feel as though if we're going to mentor the resonant field to come help in any way we can to have people get it, that when they do an act of kindness, when they do an act of good or love for someone else, they are entering the resonant field and begin to develop that process. So as far as us doing something on Earth Day, how can we elicit that one thing that someone could do in order to spread love around the planet, and therefore begin to understand, and we could possibly put it in the context of, this is for the good of the whole, not just one piece, but your contribution, however small, is so extremely important for this evolution of consciousness that we're dealing with. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's just kind of a felt sense of wholeness in and of itself. And I'll pass because I have to let my dog out. She's needing to do something. Thanks.
It needs to go out into the field.
what's coming to me is appreciating acts of kindness, appreciating the things that we do that touch another person. And this, like we've been saying, this felt sense or embodiment of our interconnectivity as whole beings in service of a whole. And that changes everything for me. And how, you know, if we're talking about a bridge, I don't see the bridge as something that I have to step onto as what's being talked about. It's, we are the living bridges. Each one of us is being shared. But it's a sense of opening. It feels like it's more a sense of opening an opportunity for people. You know, what's being spoken this whole time is about the embodiment of the field, because that's the difference. That's what makes us unique. That's what we have to offer. And so, you know, I ask myself, or I ask this collective, you know, I mean, it brings me back to Love Lives Here, because it was sort of the emanating energy that weaves someone into this experience. Well, what is good of the whole? They're watching all these artists. They're watching different featured groups or whatever that is. And I'm not saying Love Lives Here is the answer. Could be, to continue that for Earth Day. But what I am feeling is this, you know, this, again, this creative force, this creative current of love is, you know, what's it wanting to emerge as the next step, as the next, call it a baby step. I actually don't know if I go along with that, this crawling thing. I'm not sure, because when I experience the embodiment of the field, it is a full force cascade that just gently moves someone to the other side without even a wooden bridge. I don't know. When someone comes into the heart resonance and they get it and they feel it, they're right there and they want more. So I'm not defining anything in this moment, but I feel like this is, you know, from everything that's being really shared, in terms of cultivating this ethos. Sorry, I've got a lot going on in my family this morning. It just feels like it's the development of what really turns you on, what turns us on as a collective, and opening to the totality of each and every person, as each person's been saying here today. You know, you're this experience today is like it's the turning on, and it's the ignition. So I'm just going to say these words that are really moving my consciousness into the next phase, which is living resonance. It is the fertile. It is giving, you know, opening a pathway of giving people this experience of this fertile field that is always nourishing, you know, the vitality code, always precisely giving us exactly what we need. And when somebody feels that, you know, as each one of you have been expressing, there is this sensate experience of wholeness, the sensate experience of being connected to this already interconnected web. And I guess that's something that I'm kind of listening for, you know, and as we as a collective, but we as mentors, and I think everyone's been weaving in their thread here this morning in such a beautiful way. So I'll leave it at that for now.
We have our 3 off-camera girls again. Grace, Karen, and Oriana. Give them some space here.
Yeah, for me, it is just embodying in the heart and feeling in that embodiment that I am safe to be around, I'm present, that I in that presence of the field and awareness of it. And that what flows is the unconditional love. That is that felt sense felt by another heart. And then community, knowing that there's a community that can be embody this unconditional love. And I experienced 2 days ago, a military policeman came into my office to get a massage. It was a gift certificate. Didn't know him. He'd lost his stepfather 2 weeks before, and he was over here from Japan on emergency leave. And when he walked in, all I did was embody the field during the massage, let him talk, but I provide a sense of safety, presence. And about halfway through, I could feel the resistance energy drop, and there was no disconnect. And it was powerful. That experience with someone I didn't know, wasn't in my community. Yet somehow we reached this level of, felt the safety and this connection, this deeper level that we couldn't put words to. So I feel as we embody it, keeping it feeling safe for others to feel it, to be in presence with another, to offer that sense of community to another person with this flow of energy of unconditional love from our hearts. For me, that seems to work from where I'm at in my development. I don't know what you call it. I don't know what kind of journey I'm on. So thank you.
This was so valuable for me. What you said, Grace. By being that loving presence and create the safety in this space, you could access his embodiment. Our body is our access to the field. So the question when I heard you came to me is like, to all of you, do you feel safe with me that I can touch your body and hold you? Because from that place, we can access different codes. We can go much deeper. We have been relying so much on this, whatever, I'm still a foreigner, you know. And this is the access to the heart, the wisdom of the body. This is the unified field. But it doesn't matter what I have experienced in doing this work for the last 20 years. If it is my same gender, a woman or a man, does not matter. When we go there together in the conscious awareness of the awakening of the field, issues, because this is the fire, this is the collective, this is everything, is gonna rise to the surface. Anything that needs to come up, it will surface. And it's been the confusion, is that other person. Even the marriage, in the couple, in the loving relationship between two lovers, but it's not the other one. It's only accessing and touching from a feeling space. It brings up this stuff. And that is the place to stop and see and feel and release and be aware of. And that's how we can serve each other. I wonder if we can, from what we know now, we can hold each other accountable to that deeper place of embodiment and go beyond this mask of knowing, get into the field. And you said it beautifully. For the Earth Day, go and follow your heart. Listen what is yours and be that uniqueness. It doesn't have to be on one day. That is a living resonance practice. Everything is expression of me. I am the unified whole. So how can I hold the safest space for this field to come in the safety, to come to its own awareness and unfold and blossom? Can we be that for each other? Thank you. No.
I just want to presence the clock. We've agreed we go 15 more minutes on this call. So we're at the top of the hour. We'll have 15 more minutes. And Karen, you were on screen right after that if you want to share. And then Oriana.
Sort of just taking that in, that was so powerful. I was just being reminded through some of this of something I always did, and I haven't done as much lately because life has been a little more challenging and I forgot. But whenever I would leave the house, I would try to remember to just walk out and be the light for everyone and recognize and see people, seeing the other way. I would acknowledge them, and I would walk always with a smile. And I never thought anything of it because that's just where I was at that time. And I remember someone coming to me, some ticos, because I don't speak much Spanish even now because I just don't live it enough. I'm in an area that hasn't required enough of it. And people's telling me that just walking down the street with that smile just made their day. And I know I haven't been that as much lately, but listening to everyone, just simple acts like some of you talked about, the act of recognizing the person at the checkout and by their name on their tag and just being that. Thank you for reminding me. Kind of welling up now, and I'm not sure why. But I think between everyone's talk and of course these last two really hit me with grace and the heat. Opening up my heart, helping me see, reminding me. because it's been more challenging lately, and I think I've been losing some of that and been a little more in this place at times of almost an anger. I know you don't see me that way because you only see me for a couple hours a week, but I have my moments where I kind of lost it lately. And so this is helping me, remind me and bring me back to where I know I really need to be, but I want to be, and I do need to be because that is me. And this other me I don't recognize at times, and I don't feel good about it, and it doesn't feel right somehow, but it's almost like I was having trouble getting out of it. That space, even though I could see where I was and didn't want to be there. So thank you all so much. Thank you. And I have to go back and listen because I missed some of what Nikki said before, and it was getting powerful. And then we had one of those flash power outages, and then I have to wait for my modem to reset, and I missed it. And it's like, but I wanted to hear that. So this has been a very, very amazing, powerful call. Thank you for that very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We went from that beautiful poetry into that beautiful dance together. It's gorgeous. I have lots of inspiration from all of you today. Thank you for that. Just bringing this all back into the question that we were holding. There were some beautiful pieces that dropped in, and just want to hold this as we continue on to next week, thinking ahead of being this living expression of good of the whole toward Earth Day and toward Caravan of Unity and International Day of Peace, and being that for all those who aren't where we're at, who don't have this practice, who don't even have this awareness. Being here in Jersey, in this place, and being around certain people, it's so clear that this is something very special, and that this is a gift that we can share to not only being that bridge, but to be the beacon of light and hope. So I loved the idea of cultivating practices. And when I saw that first emerging through Henry and the field, I'm seeing this beautiful quilt, like a patchwork quilt of a lot of different traditions expressed through cultivating practices. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, 1,001 ways to kiss the earth. And then it was like, can we do 2020? Can we do 2020? I'm like, we could really build this repository. And then Shelley brought this around to the one simple, loving thing that we could do on that day. And I think we can hold both. I think we could literally really work toward building this repository of practices, as well as providing those experiences, daily Facebook Lives, and then literally inciting that one loving gesture. I don't know what that is. None of us probably do in this moment, but we can certainly call that in and see what wants to emerge is that one loving invitation, that one expression of love, that one force of love, that movement of love through our collective voices and bringing that out to the world. So I'm holding the both of this beautiful idea of being that in the collective cultivating practices, and holding that emerging simple invitation as we be this for one another in this field. We continue to be this for one another. And I do have to tell you, our being and our doing is beautiful, and all we have is right here and what's in front of us. And what was in front of us this week is my son-in-law came home before he left for, he's doing the campaign trail, that's why I'm here, and he's gone for 5 to 6 weeks following all the politicians, and he came home and we went to dinner with some of my daughter-in-law, son-in-law's friends. And when I listened to my son-in-law, his thinking is very different. Let me just say that. And they literally engaged in political conversation at the table, and I just listened. It was fascinating to hear this one step below, this generation below me, but to have this open conversation in a restaurant. And I'll just say this piece of the illusion of separation, I just want to pull this last through and then we can tie it with a bow together, is that I think that one of the things I observe from the millennials and even older, my son-in-law's older, he's 43, is we have all this cultural conditioning that we've grown up with. And so we're in this smaller box, and then we're exposed to these other beautiful cultivating practices. So literally, he's a practicing Buddhist, not practicing Buddha. He's a practicing Buddhist. And yet he'll literally drop in the presence of heaven and hell and Satan, and how Satan is real and at work. And I'm like, you can't have a practice of Buddhism and really believe that ours is Satan. Like, it's like these different mindsets, these different ways of seeing the world, the different worldviews that have come from that place of separation as we're moving forward. A lot of those are going to fall away. And how can we be this loving presence so that that trust, like Grace and Nihid were talking about, that complete trust to let go of all of that and experience the bridge and this force of love that we're talking about, this unified field, this coherence, this forming of our unified whole, and this literally living practice of something even greater. So thank you. Good medicine for me. Yes, Henry.
I'd like, it's an invitation to us here, maybe beyond, is, I mean, almost like a contest, but maybe it's more of a contest within, because it is to come up with 100 words of some kind of a field practice that calls to you. You know, and even, you know, there is, from the Buddhist tradition, you just mentioned the Buddhist tradition, a practice of extending outward the merit of one's own practice outward to the world or wherever it's needed. So there are all, so just play with that. And even if it's just bare bones, even if it's just words that you come up with, it doesn't have to be 100, or it could be more or less. but just some practice that your heart may call you to try to do that before next week. And and possibly share it before, but just to come back, it's more so I'm bringing an action. And the last thing I want to say is especially with what Grace was sharing and Heath and others as well, the idea of transmission, that we are transmitting the field, whether we're working with one person in a family, in a relationship, or whatever. So it's just an area that I have been called to kind of explore, and it's somewhat like a darshan. And the last and final thing, that it is the silence and just being together with intention that I feel in this group and in the resonance circles, that is the direct experience of the field. So I'm complete.
Henry, repeat your request for the 100 words so that we can all be really clear on this challenge. And I'm going to take you up on it. So.
Okay. So it's come up for each of us to come up with a field practice. Just one. And I invite you, if you're called in more directions, maybe just to get a few words of something else you might like to explore. So I just want to bring it into action. So it's an invitation, and just wherever you're called, and if you, and to be shared, of what this experience is or not, if for some reason you're, but I'd like to kind of bring it into action and embodiment. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you. Shelley, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. You raised your hand. I didn't know if you wanted to go like, oh, yes, Henry.
I just think we need to honor the time, because at least I'm going to go right now, and I love everybody, but I've got to go. So, yeah.
So that's what it is.
I'm
Okay.
just waving.
You were waving. Okay. Much love to everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll put that up in the Facebook group. Thank you. Thank you, Henry, for that.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.